Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Rachana from Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering pursuing second year. Today in this video we are going to discuss on the topic DNS poisoning of operating system caches attacks and mitigations. So first let us move on to the introduction. What is cache poisoning? Cache poisoning is a type of cyber attack where an attacker injects malicious or incorrect data into a system's cache. A common example of cache poisoning is DNS cache poisoning, where an attacker alters the IP address mappings in a DNS server's cache, redirecting users to malicious websites. In operating systems, various types of caches like the DNS cache, CPU cache, or web browser cache can be targeted by cache poisoning attacks. So next let us move on to the types of DNS cache poisoning. There are three types of DNS cache poisoning. DNS cache, CPU cache and web browser cache poisoning. So first let us see DNS cache poisoning. Attackers manipulate DNS queries and responses to store malicious IP address mappings in the operating system's DNS cache, which may lead users to malicious websites without their knowledge. Next, CPU cache poisoning. This type of attack targets low-level caches like L1 by L2 cache in CPUs. By manipulating the contents of the cache, an attacker can force unindented code execution or cause system slowdown. So next let us see web browser cache poisoning. By manipulating a browser's cache, attackers can trick the browser into storing malicious web content that is served to users when they visit legitimate websites. Next let us see DNS cache poisoning and their impact. In DNS cache poisoning, an attacker injects false domain name system means DNS records into a DNS resolve cache. As a result, the DNS server returns an incorrect IP address, redirecting traffic to malicious sites. Next, what is the impact of DNS cache poisoning? This can lead to phishing attacks, malware distribution, and data breaches as users are unknowingly directed to harmful websites. This is the pictorial representation of DNS cache poisoning. Next, let us see OS wide DNS caches. Modern OS have built-in DNA caches. These caches are shared OS-wide, meaning that if an application populates an entry in the cache, this entry will be used by any other application that requires resolution for the same name. Similar to records cached at the DNS resolvers, an OS-wide DNS cache record is stored along with the time to live means TTL value, which is set by the domain authoritative name server to determine the lifetime of the record in the cache. The purpose of having such a cache is to improve the performance of DNS resolution as it is on the critical path of accessing internet resources, especially for applications that have many short-lived connections. When a client machine issues a DNS request, the request reaches the authoritative name server, having this answer after traversing a chain of DNS servers or resolvers and different layers of caches. So this is the pictorial representation of DNS cache poisoning. How the DNS cache poisoning takes place. Next, let us move on to DNS threat model. In this threat model, we consider four entities. The entities are below as the victim client machine and its OS by DNS cache, a legitimate resolver which acts as a DNS server for the client machine. The client may connect to this resolver via a NAT device which has its own DNS cache. The on-device malware, which is unprivileged and cannot tamper with other applications directly. We will instantiate this later in section. This malware could be a malicious JavaScript running in the browser after an attacker browses a malicious or compromised website or a malicious application downloaded to the user's phone. The off-path attacker who is capable of spoofing the IP address of the legitimate resolver. The malware and off-path attacker collaborate to poison the OS by DNS cache with a malicious mapping for a target domain name. Next, let us move on to attack construction and analysis. We first overview that attack at a high level and introduce possible attack scenarios. We then explain how to overcome number of challenges needed to implement the attack, leading to a complete end-to-end attack under realistic conditions. A malicious user level program requests a DNS resolution for the target's DNS domain. The goal of the attacker is to poison the cached DNS entry such that it resolves to the IP address of an attacker server, redirecting user connections targeting to go to the attack's web server. In practice, before the unprivileged malware triggers the DNS request, it alters the off-path attacker so that when the DNS request is sent, the off-path attacker has started to respond by flooding the client with spoofed responses, maximizing the use of the vulnerable window between the issue of a DNS request and the receipt of a valid response. Next, this is the high-level attack overview of DNS poisoning. Next, what are the challenge and detailed attack procedure? So let's see. In order to send spoofed responses, the off-path attacker must first obtain the DNS request, source IP address, source UDP port, destination IP address, and destination UDP port. DNS primarily use the UDP protocol to transmit packets. In our attack, we assume that all DNS traffic between victim, the source, and resolver, the destination is over UDP, which is a valid assumption because DNS a packet size is usually smaller than 512 bytes. Means DNS packet size is less than 512 bytes. So next, what is the conclusion? As conclusion, this paper gives and identifies and evaluates a new client-side OS-wide DNS cache poisoning attack against Windows, Mac OS, and Linux OS. The attack targets the OS level DNS cache, a client-side cache supported by most modern OS. We tailor the attacks to work against each OS individually, taking into account the specifics of each implementation. The attack succeeds in as little as tens of seconds under realistic conditions. We also build an analytical model of the unexpected number of rounds for the attack to succeed for both Windows and Ubuntu and validate the model against the experimental observations. Finally, we propose a defense that requires only a patch of the OS of the client device and show that it can mitigate the attack. So this is the conclusion. So thank you everyone. If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you everyone.